Well, good morning, West Coast, and good afternoon to the East, and good day to everybody in between. My name is Brad Etheridge. We're pleased to have you with us here today. For those of you that don't know about the center, we are not an IMO or a PPO or a broker-dealer. We're a membership-based organization. I guess probably the best way to view us is to kind of see us as a study group on steroids. But the center itself creates a level of education and differentiation for advisors. We have as members, we have some CPAs, we have some tax attorneys, we have a lot of financial planners. We've got some folks that are asset gatherers or just pure life insurance agents. And one thing they have in common is they want to be able to provide better solutions and opportunities to their clients through strategies, concepts, techniques, and training that they otherwise would not have access to. So the center itself is providing this free webinar today. We're going to tell you about an event we have coming up that could be career changing for you. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to introduce Simon Singer, who's the founder of the Center for Tax Strategies and Resources. For those of you that don't know Simon, he's been very successfully in our industry since 1966. He's in the top 1/10 of 1% of all financial planners in the U.S. And has been for years and years and years. He's written several business bestsellers. He's quite a sought-after speaker when the world allows us to speak publicly. And he has been a member of some very prestigious organizations such as Financial Planners Association, Advisors in Philanthropy, and is the past president of the Forum 400 and is the National Humanitarian Award recipient, which is quite an honor. One thing about Simon, I'll tell you that you wouldn't know from his bio, he lives for this stuff. I have never met anybody who's better getting a client to disclose more information and eventually look over to you and say, well, why wouldn't I do this? And that's usually his biggest closing line. So with that, Simon, say hi to everybody.
Thanks, Bradley. Appreciate the kind words. Always do. I'm going to go through something which is really trying to create strategic partnerships, whether it be with professional advisors, attorneys, CPAs, whether it be with somebody that handles assets under management better than you do, or does qualified plans better than you do, or is not afraid of somebody that's worth, 20, 50, $100 million. The whole idea of open is always the issue. Then you have to do discovery. Then you have to design. And if you've done discovery well enough and listened well enough to do the design well, the close kind of happens by itself. But we're going to go through a whole bunch of steps on this to see the things that our people do right and the things that our people, by the way, I'm including Brad in the our people, and what we do wrong, because we still do things wrong. Sometimes it's we're not listening well enough. Sometimes we're not being adjustable enough. But there's always things, and I'm not looking for 100 ways to be wrong. I'm just looking for one way to be right. So we're going to kind of go through. So here's some common sales process missteps. Number one is improper stage setting. So before we ever go out and meet with a prospect, we send them what we call our shock and awe package. It includes a couple, 3 books that I've been privileged to be co-author in. It includes with copies of articles where I've been quoted or we've written. It includes a bio. It includes just all kinds of stuff that most people in our industry will never go anywhere near doing because they think nobody wants them. And to be quite frank with you, they really don't want them, but they kind of determine the value of who they're going to talk to based on the weight of the package that they receive. And packages are opened before letters are received before phone calls. So setting the stage properly is important. Lack of discovery. Assuming discovery is just numbers. Well, it's not. You don't need to sit in front of somebody in order to find out their net worth. You can ask them to give you a financial statement and tax returns. You want to get in between the lines. You want to find out why they do something, not just what they've done and what they've tried before and what's worked and what hasn't worked, etc. So it's important to know that they have a severely handicapped child. It's important to know the things that are important to them. That's back to how to influence and influence people. I had my kids read that when they were about 10 or 11 years old, which was probably premature, but my daughter still quotes from it. And it's the key to great management, and that's whether it be management of employees or management of potential client relationships is the ability to make other people feel important. That's really the genesis of the whole thing. But when you take an interest in people, you're making them feel important. Rushing to solutions. I tell you, and I'm going to laugh about this because most all of us who are pretty experienced in this business, we know in about 10 minutes of doing discovery what the solutions are going to be. We might even know what kind of revenue we're going to generate on this particular case. And I've thought sometimes maybe what I want to do with this client is have something like this. Look, you need liquidity for your estate plan. You need liquidity for your buy-sell agreement. So we're going to have 3 or 4 more meetings. Then you're going to have to go to a doctor. He's going to stick you with a needle. He's going to take blood out. He's going to weigh you. He's going to take your pulse and your blood pressure. He's going to talk about your family background. And when all this is said and done, you're going to wind up buying $250,000 of annual life insurance premium. I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Write me a check for $100,000 right now, and you'll never have to see me again. I've kind of chuckled to myself. I've never had the guts to do it, but rushing to solutions. If you rush to solutions, it makes people think that their problems are simple and they should have been able to think of this themselves. If you consciously stroke your chin and say something like, very interesting set of circumstances. I know we've got a solution here that might save you, $50,000 a year in income taxes, that might protect your assets from the claims of creditors, that might be able to substantially expand the lifetime exemption for estate planning. I know the solution, I'm just not exactly sure what they'll be. So let me give it some thought and maybe we'll talk again in a couple of days. Don't be too anxious to run with solutions. Ignoring the client's existing advisors. Boy, is that a major mistake. Yesterday, Joe Strazzeri included existing advisors in the description of snipers, meaning people that are waiting in the bushes to pick off your engagement. It could be a CPA, it could be an attorney, it could be a brother-in-law, it could be an insurance salesman, but ignoring them makes a major mistake, because when you finish making your presentation, whenever you get around to it, second meeting, third meeting, fourth meeting, when you finish doing that, they're going to shake their head affirmatively and they're going to seek out somebody whose advice they can get with regard to what you just told them. So if you know in advance that there are advisors that are going to be consulted, then delay how long it takes you to make the actual recommendations. Spend more time in doing discovery. Sorry, went the wrong way. Spend more time in doing discovery. Then take what you discover, go meet with the existing advisors and ask them what they would do. Don't tell them what you would do. Ask them what they would do so you can get a better feel for how they would react. And if insurance or assets under management or pension plans aren't included, you might say, well, what would you think about a split dollar plan through his corporation? And listen. And what would you think about a pension plan? And listen. And what would you think about a charitable remainder trust or a GRAT or a self-canceling and small? You just, as opposed to dictating and lecturing, ask what their opinions are. You will find that it will turn adversaries into advocates. And if they're going to kill your deal, let them kill it now. Don't waste 2 or 3 months on it. No or infrequent use of edification. If I go speak with the existing advisors, the existing advisor gets to understand that I really do know what I'm talking about. And I really am concerned with the well-being of our mutual client. And if I do that well enough and I edify the existing advisor, chances are the existing advisor is going to edify me. But if I ignore them, effectively what I'm saying is they have no value. That's not a good place to be. Failure to control the pace of the salary, the pace of the sale, that gets back to rushing to solutions. So you don't want to stall. You don't want to be inconclusive, but what you want to do is an options planner. You want to explain, we could do it this way, we could do it that way, we could do it this way. It's kind of like going to a restaurant that has one of these massive amount of menus. It's difficult to make decisions. So you let them know that there's solutions. You let them know that I can save you $5 or $6 million here and $200,000 or $300,000 there, but I'm not exactly sure how. Control the pace of the engagement. Not gauging the client's understanding during your sales call. So That comes about when we just go from A to Z in our presentation. We don't take a breath. We never stop and ask the client if what you just finished saying makes sense. Because if they start to lose you, and let's say your presentation goes from A to Z, if they start to lose you at the letter C, they stop listening at that time and they focus on what it is that I just missed, what it is that I'm not understanding, and they'll never hear your D, E, F, G, et cetera, et cetera. So every step along the way, ask them whether you're making sense or not. Ask them whether you're tracking. Ask them if this is the direction that you would like this conversation to go, and be able to make little small adjustments if necessary, as opposed to having to start the whole thing all over again. Selling yourself instead of your team. I can brag about myself all day long. It doesn't matter whether it's true or whether it's not true. All the clients is going to hear, you know, cocky SOB, blah, 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 blah. But if I brag about my team, if I brag about Todd and Bobby and Brad and Joe and Bruce and Kevin, et cetera, it was, I appear bigger than I am. I appear to be not bragging about how wonderful and marvelous I am. And if we use the resources of the center that has tax attorneys and CPAs and we brag about the resources, then all of a sudden we're different than the last 10 salesmen that they've let through the door unknowingly. We're different because we're not just doing one thing, we're doing all kinds of things. For instance, that veterinarian we talked about earlier, you know, she had literally come about 30 minutes away from signing an agreement with another firm, and our member did a great job in selling the value of the team, and she wound up paying a lot more in fees than she anticipated, but she also wound up getting an exponential amount of value. So it's really important to sell the value of the team as opposed to yourself. Leading with a solution is a major play because that takes and oversimplifies the solution. You want to keep outlining and determining and finding out what the client thinks our problems are. So for instance, you might say, I'm paying too much tax. And you could say, well, what you could do is a defined benefit plan. And they might have had a defined benefit plan. They might have had a cash balance plan. They might feel that they got screwed on it because the ratio of contribution to benefit was 50% for the employees and 50% for them. Before you start leading with solutions, you darn well better know what they've tried in the past, what they haven't tried, what they know, what they don't know, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You're going to find that's a common message in this presentation. Answering each and every question that your prospect asks. You know, we grew up learning how to answer objections. We grew up having to answer every single question they asked with which a lot of times are delaying and avoidance techniques. So you might say to them, I'll get to that. Let me just do this in concert. You might just say, well, tell me what that has to do with what we're talking about, and challenge them, because sometimes people will just object just to object. It could be because you haven't established know, like, trust yet. You need to learn that making statements is not a good idea. It's far better to ask questions, and there isn't a single statement that you couldn't make and turn into a question by after the statement asking, does that make sense? Or are we tracking? Are we on the same page? Is this what you're trying to accomplish? When you make statements, you don't know if they agree or they disagree. When you ask a question, they're going to come up with a yes, it does, or no, it doesn't, and you'll be able to evolve from there. Not making your practice to appear larger than it is. We just talked about that. That's what using the resources are for. And the gentleman who got that $30 million client off of an internet lead did so in addition to his skill set, which he has a substantial amount of. In addition to that, he leaned on the value of the organization as opposed to just him. Okay, here's a proper sales process. Number one, set the stage correctly. Don't just walk into the door, you know, in a nice suit with a briefcase. Psychology of the sale. Understand who's the prospect going to turn to when you walk out of the room. The third part, the elevation of the team members, so that if you edify them, they edify you. But I say, you know, your CPA, you know, you've really outgrown him. You probably don't need him any longer. And then if he comes along and says to the client, you know, your advisor, Simon Singer, is really bright, you're really lucky to have him, it doesn't mean anything. But if I elevate them and edify them, and they elevate me and edify me, the client's going to be better served. This is a very, very critical point. The setup. So I might say, you know, you have a very interesting set of circumstances. I think we probably need to gonna have a tax attorney, and they're seeing dollar signs all over their face. So you know, we might be able to get a half hour, an hour with this tax attorney or this guy Brad Etheridge, who's very highly qualified. We might be able to do that, and we'll do it on my dime. It's not going to cost you anything. There might be some fees attached if you decide that you want to engage them, but let's have a conversation with them and see whether or not they think there's some solutions, and we'll do it on my nickel. This is my dime. We'll do it on my dime, and we'll be able to get a first level of commitment. Somebody saying, yes, I'm willing to do that. Sometimes it's because they're getting it for free, and sometimes it's because they're really interested. But it's important to be able to have the setup correctly. Managing the expectations of the client. Yep, might be able to save you $50,000 to $100,000 a year. Always under promise and hopefully over deliver. Yes, I'm going to set up this call with this very sophisticated tax attorney. It's going to be on my dime, and let the attorney and the client see whether or not they resonate with each other. But it's always manage their expectations. Don't leave it hanging out there in the wind someplace where they expect you to save them 500 million and you only save them $1 million. Obviously an exaggeration, but it's important to manage those expectations and then to clarify whether or not you did what you promised you would do, because they will forget to keep score. The only one that's going to keep score is you. The call after the call. This is something that after I have a call with a client, it goes back to this. Who's the prospect going to turn to? That's why I never make recommendations without first clearing them with the snipers. Because if he's got a brother-in-law, the brother of his wife, who happens to have an insurance license, and I'm talking about something that involves insurance, do I really think that he's going to go home and tell his wife that he just did her brother out of $100,000 in compensation? Managing those expectations, managing that relationship, talking with this brother-in-law who happens to have an insurance license, and tell him how you'd like him to be able to help. You're far better off having control of who the client's going to talk with than just letting it happen. And then lastly, the follow-up, doing what you promised, involving the other advisors, involving the brother-in-law, having pieces like Wealthy and Wise, which we'll discuss later, to be able to help validate where do these numbers come from, how do they really apply, et cetera, et cetera.
This seemed like a pretty good place to let everybody know about our upcoming Academy event, which is going to be virtual, so no TSA lines and having to pack bags and iron your shirts. So this will be, you can do this right from the comfort of your home office or any electronic equipment. You can broadcast and you can watch this technically from the golf course. But we have an academy coming up here. I want to tell you a little bit about what is going to happen over those 3 days. We have our faculty, which are our experts that our members all have access to as part of being part of the group. But we're going to bring in these experts over this 3-day period, and they're going to cover some amazing topics that can just be incredible. If you're not watching this at the event and have a notepad where you end up with 10 names of clients that you could apply that to, I'd be shocked, because nobody ever does less than that. Just a great way to really enhance the tail end of your year here and get you ready for year end. It should be one of your best times of the year. So this academy starts at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific and ends at 3. We do about a 20-minute break for lunch in between for returning phone calls. If you get into the virtual academy, the guests, the folks, those of you that aren't members, will have a week to be able to review the material. It'll be recorded, so you can go back and play over any of those parts as many times as you want. For the members of our group, by registering for the academy, you have unlimited access to the recordings in perpetuity. Now, our members pay less than the general public. You can find the registration for this. In fact, we'll send you a link as soon as this is over also, but you can find our registration at www.yourctsr, your Center for Tax Strategies and Resources.com, and click on the upcoming events tab. Again, members, make sure you're going to the member portal and then register from there. If you need more information on what we've talked about today, or you just need some more information on why you want to become a member of our group, you can call 877-258-2837, or you can email the center team at your CTSR, and we will put this up again at the end of the program.
Kirk Knoll is an entrepreneur that has put together a company that does some magic with regard to taxes that companies have paid, expenses of things that they're overpaying for. And I think you're going to find this very intriguing. His firm is the one that saved our female client, who has now recently sold her business. He got her a refund of about $1,200,000 in not a giant company, relatively small company. I think there was a total of 30 employees. The woman was the sole owner. But I think you're going to find this very intriguing because it's stuff that every single one of you have in your client inventory, people that would be applicable and appropriate to have speak with Kirk. But once again, we ask that you do it through our network so that we can, what we can do is we can kind of filter the stuff that's not appropriate and not waste Kirk's time or Walt's time, et cetera, et cetera. So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you our friend Kirk Knoll. He's going to talk to you about what his company DCI Solutions can accomplish for your clients and, more importantly, for you guys. Kirk?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually and, of course, personally whenever we have a chance to be together. If you're ever down in Leucadia, I tell people a good day for me, I don't go more than 50 feet in any one direction. So most of the time I'm virtual, but definitely in person if you happen to be in North County, San Diego, near the coast. Would love to see you. I am sharing my screen with everyone. I trust you can see DCIsolutions.net. I'm going to try and cover a lot of ground in a very short amount of time so that we have plenty of Q&A before I have to drop off for 10 o'clock with a business owner. So assuming you see my screen, this is the message we give people. It's important that the message be clear and attractive and not muddled. Some people say, Kirk, I talked to so-and-so and he was not interested. And I say it's because he probably didn't understand or see what we really do. This is what people need to see. If possible, show them the website. Company worth 50 million on Monday could be worth 55 on Friday. Or if it's 20 million on Monday, it's 22 on Tuesday. We are very serious about giving the owner of the money an extra 10% jump in his cash flow, profit, equity value. And of course, since he owns the company, we're talking about a 10% jump in his net worth. If his entire net worth is tied up in the company, that company is the source of his net worth, we're going to do that. Usually it translates to $1,000 to $4,000 per full-time employee. So if you want to do some quick math, the average company, let's say of 100 people full-time, that company usually earns somewhere, well, let's start with income. Company of 100 people, their operating income might be $20 million a year, and their market value might be based upon their revenue, right? So if it's earning 20 million revenue, sometimes a company can actually get, depending on its margins, $20 million in a deal if they sell to a strategic or a private equity investor or something. What we say is if you're earning 20 million, if that is your revenue that's coming in, the EBITDA, if let's say you're 10 points on revenue, you're taking in about 2 million. Well, divided by 100, 2 million divided by 100 is 20,000. So by the time we get to a $2,000 jump per employee per year, that's already 10% of that $20,000 per employee per year of earnings, if that math ties out to you. So I usually say we get to 1,000, which is 5%, no problem. Often it's 10% because we can usually get to 2,000. If I start talking about 3,000, 4,000, and I do the math, obviously that could be 15, 20%. At that point, people start to think we're making up fairy tales. So I try to be very guarded by simply saying expect a 10% jump, but in hard dollar numbers, a company with 100 employees will see annual gains of $100,000 to $400,000 per year, every year forever, world without end, amen. So this is the chart that goes up and to the right. If you have clients that like charts that go up and to the right, you can always take them to dcisolutions.net. We don't have a PowerPoint. We don't have a deck. I don't have a brochure. I threw those all out years ago. And this way, anybody, anywhere can get somebody in front of a screen and say, here is the value prop. This blue triangle is your future. Would you like to have it? Regardless of what kind of company you have, any company of any kind, anywhere doing anything, for profit, not for profit, not making profit, privately held, publicly traded, could be a couple dozen, you could be 22,000, won't matter, any company in between. As long as we're talking to the decider, we're saying this is the chart that goes up and to the right on a sustainable, ongoing basis. The goal should be to have the intelligent person say, wow. And if they're not intelligent, you probably don't want to work with them, right? But you want to find the man or woman who owns the money or thinks like the person who owns the money, and they go, wow, that's very attractive. I say, of these digits that you see here on the screen, what single digit is the most important one? It's not this, and it's not this. It is this. The value prop has to be this big numerator, and in the denominator, dividing into it is one full day of the sponsoring executive's time and energy. Typically, most of your business owners and CEOs work 10 hours a day. So I say, if you give me 10 full hours of your complete undivided attention, 600 cumulative minutes, I can deliver this result before we're halfway there. By the time we're at the 50-yard line, by the time we're at halftime, I should say, we've already won the game, 49-0. So I need the owner to say, yes, I will look at the money, and if I like the money and I approve the money, then you will get the money and you will require from me exactly 1 day of my personal focused energy. Yes. This way, 1 day, 10% jump. Or if you want to put another ratio, we're talking about a 1% increase in the equity value of the company for every 1 hour of focused personal attention from the owner. How many places offer 1% jump in net worth, a 1% jump in equity value for every 1 hour of focused attention? I was talking with a fairly, let's say, large company, a couple thousand people. So I want to share with you some of the more recent examples of what we've been doing. And I sent him this email just yesterday. This is a company with a couple thousand employees. So if you're looking at my screen, this is a simplified chart. Red means this is what you have. It's the number that you currently have as your benchmark, and it should stop. They're a self-funded plan. So some of you are working with clients that see themselves as very sophisticated because they do self-funding on their health insurance. Great. They spent, in this particular organization, $7.5 million. They got rebates, which are a total scam, of $1.7 million. But this is like me charging you $1 million and then giving you a $100,000 rebate, and somehow you don't look past the $900,000 that you were overcharged. So they get rebates on their drugs of 1.7. We're not sure what kind of assistance payment programs they have. The members contribute 600,000, and so the company, the CEO, has to stroke a check for $5.1 million every year to cover his 3,600 plan participants. It comes to about $1,500 per employee per year. You're doing your math right. In a well-run plan, that should be less than half that amount. So we say, this is what you currently pay. These are real life numbers. And this is what you could be paying, 1.99. I say, if you do something called variable copay assistance, it's like reaching into a library, only it's not a library full of tax incentives that a wealthy person can apply to his personal wealth. These are the types of assistance and incentives that can be used to offset the corporate cost of funding their self-funded RX program. And by doing so, the cost of running their drugs drops from 5.1 million to what we think will be 1.9 million. There's some unknown factors in it, but we put in a guaranteed minimum. It's absolutely impossible, no matter what happens, hell or high water, for there to be less than 7 figures, hard dollar, money in the bank savings that you can take home. So if you need money like you need oxygen, please expect there to be probably $3 million, but absolutely bottom line book $1 million today once you say, I agree. So you can see here, with a couple, I think 3,000 total almost employees in the company, and then they've got dependents. But of those 3,000 employees, we're almost getting to headcount times 1,000 just on one component of insurance and benefits. It's not even their major medical. It's not even their stop loss. It's simply the cost of their drugs. So if we can get there just on the cost of their drugs, and then we look at their major medical stop loss, which by the way is $1 million too high, and then we look at all the other components of their 401k and then their property and casualty, you can see before we even get out of this dial, we are well past headcount times $1,000. We're really well past headcount times $2,000, and we've just gotten started. Then we can look at the tax savings, the freight, the utilities, laundry and linen. This is a medical group, so they spend a tremendous amount of money on laundry and linen, and no one has ever thought to audit all the clean towels that are taken away and then brought back a couple of days later, just as clean as when they left the building. No one has once taken a look at the inventory and asked, why do we have these closets full of linen that never gets used and we get charged for? And then when we do have it laundered, frankly, they're laundering stuff that's clean already. Right? So there's 1,000 ways that you can save money on services and supplies, payroll processing fees, overhead. Then you get to telecommunications, utilities. The list goes on and on. It's like finding. I've said this before, I think at the group in Las Vegas, finding money in a company is like finding water in the ocean. People think, how could that be, Kirk? We've looked everywhere. Yeah, you look just like I look into the heavens, and I say, I still can't see the galaxies that everyone tells me are out there. I can't see some of these heavenly bodies that people assure me are there. Yes, because you don't have the right tool. You're looking with the bare naked eye. If you were a trained astronomer using astronomer's tools, you probably would see a whole lot more than you could just doing your very best on your own. That was example one. I don't think I shared that example when we were in Las Vegas, because again, I think it happened yesterday. People say, Kirk, is it really this easy? I say, yes, it's like this game show I was on called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Back 15 years ago, I think I shared this. I was on a show. They had my wife and kids, sister, my mom, all in the stands. And back then, my kids were in junior high. So if you get the answers wrong, then you have to say, I am not smarter than a fifth grader. Everybody points at you and laugh. And then, of course, the next day at school, your kids go through holy hell while people say, I saw your dad on TV and he's stupid, right? No pressure. So they get you on the show and they say, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, unrelated fields. Math, English, science, and I think I mentioned to the group the questions were like, who was the only unmarried president? What two countries share the island of Hispaniola? When someone says, Kirk, how are you doing? What form of speech is the word how, right? Well, that's not unlike this. Only instead of first grade math, it's tax credits. Instead of second grade English, it's freight. Instead of third grade history, it's telecommunications. And I simply want to have 50 people behind me who know what the question should be and what the exact precise answer is that maximizes the client's wealth in a way that he almost would think would be impossible had he not met us first. So that is the feeling we're going for. Win a lot of money, have a lot of fun. Is there any better way to have a good day than to win a lot of money and have a lot of fun? The thing with this is when we win this money, it's everybody on the board, including the people in this group. Because when you're introducing your clients to DCI, and they are winning this money, well, we're winning it, but the points that are on the board, that's translating into their money. And it's also translating into your money because two reasons. One, the referral fee you earn, a dime of every dollar. Number two, as we've already pointed out with Mr. Dallas, you have the opportunity to see the client free up these additional tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and perhaps even millions of dollars that he can use to start funding the financial products and services that do take out-of-pocket cash to get going. I can pause anytime there's a question out there from the audience, Brad, so I'm not worried about them breaking my stride. Here's a typical payday. The person who set up this meeting got paid $16,285 simply for setting up the meeting. He wasn't even at most of the meetings, quite frankly. Didn't have to be. So you go on beyond the beach and cash your checks, right? So this is how we try to do it. This is a company we just did a brokerage. So in Chicago, a week ago, they said, we don't want to do anything that costs any risk, that has any problems. And we want to offer platinum and gold PPO plans to our employees. These are high-paid stockbrokers. They make a lot of money. We want to keep them here. Great. So if you can see here, this is the total number of people participating in just their $1,000 deductible plan. If you add these numbers up, 13 plus 4 is 17. That makes it 20. So 32 people total. Some were single, some had families, and so forth. These are the renewal rates. I said, I know you just renewed. The fallacy that most people are led into is that once you miss your turn, you cannot take the next exit. You have to go all the way around the earth. You have to circumnavigate the globe, and then you can come back to that exit, and hopefully, next time you'll take the exit. That is a fallacy propagated by the commission salesperson, also known as your health insurance broker. You do not have to worry that you just renewed, I think, July 31st or something like that. We will have this in place in 60 days. Terminate the plan that you're under. And if you look at his renewal rates that he just signed for, again, this is for like a gold / almost platinum plan. $1,000 per person, $2,200 per spouse, and if you go to whole family, $3,200. And I'm saying these are lower rates. You can get these rates without leaving the Blue Cross network. By the way, your Blue Cross network is no more than like saying a Visa card. You go to the store, you can pay with Visa, but you can also pay with MasterCard, Discover, Amex, or cash, or check. So Blue Cross basically is simply offering you the same doctors you can get with Cigna, United Health, with about a 90-something% overlap. But if you felt like you had to have Blue Cross for some fictional reason, great. 1,000 becomes 700, 3,200 becomes 1,500. Your total monthly premium just on these 32 employees, which is a subset of his overall company, drops from 68,000 to 36. So you can save about $32,000 in change. Again, on how many people did we say? 32. He's saving $32,000 on 32 people. Is that $1,000 per employee? Yes, it's $1,000 per employee, but it's not $1,000 per employee per month, per year, is it? It's $1,000 per employee per what? Month.
Ever.
Forever and ever. He's saving $1,000 per employee per month. He's saving $12,000 per employee per year. Now, if I try to show this in the growth chart, people do think I'm on LSD. So I don't talk about these things until after the person is a signed client and we've got the data. But I tell people, do not fall out of your chair when something amazing happens. We will start by saying $1,000 or $4,000 because even that stretches credulity for the average listener.
Thank you for taking the time to go through this with everybody. You can reach out to me, Brad at yourctsr.com. If you've got somebody you want to get that review on, I suggest you go to their website also, because he's got all those charts and the dials and everything else on there. It was a pleasure being able to spend some time with you here today. I think you can see how with the right tools and talent and some folks behind you, you can be independent without being alone. Increasing your life insurance sales and tax savings is one of about 40 strategies that we try to put in front of our members on a regular basis to increase their practice revenue. And hey, after all, that's the primary reason why someone joins our group. Now, to get a really kind of in-depth explanation of some of the strategies and concepts, even if you never become a member, the Academy can help you increase your practice revenue. So join us 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific. And our end time is approximate. Sometimes we run a few minutes long based on what questions you ask, and we will be having opportunities to ask specific questions about your clients as we go through the program. To register, go to our website, www.yourctsr.com, and there is an upcoming events tab. Just click on that. Again, a reminder, members, make sure you're doing it through the member portal and log in as a member first. More information on the center, give us a call at 877-258-2837, or you can email us if you prefer at thecenterteam@yourctsr.com. Look forward to seeing you at the Virtual Academy. It is an unbelievable 3-day program that will change the way you think about helping your clients and moving your practice to the next level. So wonderful to spend some time with you here today. Hope everybody stays happy and healthy, and we'll see you at the Academy.